The twin suns of the distant system Lasara burned low on the horizon, casting long orange shadows across the barren plains of Skor. Jagged rock spires, twisted like frozen lightning, jutted from the cracked surface. Dust devils danced between the monolithic outcrops as if performing some eerie, silent ritual. Amidst this desolation trudged a single figure, a human in gear that had seen better centuries. His armor was scratched, dented, and faded, the colors long muted by countless battles, sandstorms, and radiation storms. The helmet bore cracks and mismatched visors, the gauntlets were patched with tape, and one of the boots had a sole barely hanging on. Yet, despite appearances, he moved with a confidence that was oddly unnerving to the Lasarans watching him from a nearby ridge. The group of aliens, tall and slender with translucent skin revealing their intricate circulatory patterns, whispered among themselves in a flurry of clicks and musical tones. They had watched many species traverse Skor, most failing spectacularly. This human, however, had drawn their attention, not because of skill, but because of his equipment. "Look at him," hissed one of the observers, its voice resonating through low vibrations. "He crawls across the desert in that." "Pathetic," replied another, flicking its appendages dismissively. "No species survives here with such fragile tools." The human paused and removed his helmet for a moment, revealing a face streaked with soot and sunburn. He wiped his brow, revealing eyes that glinted with a strange mixture of exhaustion and determination. His name was Captain Elias Train, an explorer from Earth, known across human colonies as a man who never left a frontier unconquered. What the Lasarans did not know was that Elias's worn gear had a history. Every scar, every dent told a story of survival against odds that no alien in this system could imagine. His armor had repelled plasma storms, acid rains, and even the lethal bites of the death mantis of Koroth 4. His boots had crossed glaciers of frozen methane. His gauntlets had repaired ships in orbit while under enemy fire. Each piece was a veteran of war's humanity, had fought quietly, efficiently, and often alone. But the Lasarans only saw the surface. Elias's mission on Skor was simple: locate the remains of the Aurelian beacons, ancient human technology lost centuries ago during the first wave of interstellar expansion. The beacons, if activated, could stabilize the unstable energy grid the humans had deployed to colonize nearby systems. Failure would doom hundreds of settlements, and Elias knew this. He did not have the luxury of pristine equipment. Human engineers had sent him with the best they could spare, which meant whatever works after decades of salvaged tech. The Lasarans, of course, saw nothing but rust and wear. As Elias approached a ridge, his scanner beeped sharply. The signal from the beacon ruins was close. He crouched, pulling a device from his belt. It was small, barely bigger than his palm, yet packed with decades of human engineering, a multi-spectrum geomapper fused with a radiation compensator. He adjusted it, and the device projected a holographic map over the sand. The faint glow illuminated the surrounding rocks, revealing a hidden fissure that led into the ruins. Suddenly, the Lasarans decided to intervene. A wave of bioluminescent energy shimmered across the ridge, and several figures glided down. They were armed with crystalline lances capable of piercing advanced alloys. Their leader, a larger specimen with shimmering violet veins, stepped forward. "Human," it said, its tone sharp and mocking. "You wander in a realm beyond your comprehension. Your tools, they are relics. Do you truly believe you can survive here?" Elias didn't flinch. He pulled on his gauntlets, the sound of worn metal creaking echoing in the air. "I don't believe. I know." The Lasarans laughed, a chorus of sounds that made the air vibrate. "We will see, human. We will see." Before Elias could respond, The leader lunged, the crystalline lance slicing through the air. Elias rolled, dodging nimbly despite the weight of his battered armor. He reached into his pack and produced a small, cylindrical device, the kind of improvisation humans excelled at. He pressed a button, and a net of high-density fibers shot out, tangling the Laceran's legs and pulling them off balance. Primitive tricks, one hissed, but Elias was already moving. He reached the fissure and disappeared into the shadowed ruins. The Lacerans hesitated. They had underestimated him, and for the first time, doubt flickered across their translucent skin. Inside the ruins, Elias moved cautiously. The walls were covered in ancient symbols and etched schematics of energy flows. The Aurelian beacon was said to contain a core capable of generating a field strong enough to stabilize interstellar colonies. But these ruins were unstable. The ceiling groaned as if warning him away. He found the beacon chamber eventually. The device was larger than he imagined, its metal corroded but intact. A series of conduits led from the core to a central interface. Elias knelt and began working. He pulled tools from his belt, wrenches, calibrators, and devices that looked cobbled together but hummed with precise energy. The Laceran's earlier laughter echoed in his mind, but he blocked it out. Hours passed. Dust and time did not matter to him. He recalibrated circuits, replaced worn connectors, and even sacrificed parts of his own gear to replace corroded segments. Sweat dripped down his brow as sparks flew, and finally, with a low hum that vibrated the entire chamber, the beacon powered on. The Lacerans outside sensed it immediately. A pulse of energy radiated from the fissure, brushing the desert surface. It was unlike anything in their experience, both raw and elegantly controlled. Sand rose in waves, rocks vibrated with the hum. They realized the human had not only survived but had activated the beacon. Elias emerged from the fissure as the energy wave settled. His gear was scorched, his armor dented further, but he stood tall. The Lacerans froze, their earlier mockery replaced with awe and fear. The leader stepped forward, voice low and trembling. How? Elias looked down at his hands, blackened and cracked, and the battered gauntlets that had once been laughed at. This, he said simply, this is what humans do. We make do. We endure. And we never stop, no matter how broken we look. One by one, the Lacerans knelt, or attempted to, in their alien fashion. Respect was not their usual mode, but instinctively they recognized mastery. You have earned it, the leader said. We thought your equipment meant weakness. It was deception. Elias allowed himself a small smile. It's only gear. The real cost was in the years, the risks, and the sacrifices. Every dent, every crack has a story. That story kept me alive today. The beacon pulsed again, stabilizing distant colonies across Lasara. Lights blinked across maps in orbiting stations, and far-off settlements were secured. Elias had not only survived the desert and its guardians, he had changed the balance of power in this system. The Lacerans, still quivering, stepped aside. Human, your species, we have misjudged you. Elias raised his visor, letting the fading suns illuminate his face. Then remember this. Don't judge by appearances. The universe favors those who endure, not those who look perfect. The desert wind picked up, carrying sand and dust across the now quiet plains. Elias turned to continue his journey, his worn armor moving in rhythm with his body. Each scuff, each dent, each makeshift repair told a story of human resilience. The Lacerans watched him go, and for the first time, they understood that survival wasn't about pristine equipment. It was about spirit, ingenuity, and the willingness to pay the cost no one else would. Years later, stories of the human with worn armor spread across the stars. To some, he was a legend, to others a warning. Every colony that benefited from the Aurelian beacons told of a man who carried nothing but determination and gear that should have been laughed at, yet carried the weight of survival itself. And Elias? He continued forward, always exploring, always risking, always enduring. Because humanity's greatest strength was never in the shiny, the new, or the pristine. It was in taking what was broken, making it work, and walking into the impossible with unwavering resolve. The galaxy had laughed at his worn gear. They had not known the true cost behind every dent and scar. And when they finally learned, it was too late. He had already claimed victory. The Lacerans, still quivering, stepped aside. "Human, your species, we have misjudged you." Elias raised his visor, letting the fading suns illuminate his face. "Then remember this. Don't judge by appearances. The universe favors those who endure, not those who look perfect." The desert wind picked up, carrying sand and dust across the now quiet plains. Elias turned to continue his journey, his worn armor moving in rhythm with his body. Each scuff, each dent, each makeshift repair told a story of human resilience. The Lacerans watched him go, and for the first time, they understood that survival wasn't about pristine equipment. It was about spirit, ingenuity, and the willingness to pay the cost no one else would. As Elias disappeared over the horizon, the leader of the Lacerans turned to the others. "We have been fools," it admitted, voice heavy with something akin to shame. "We thought mastery required perfection, but it is endurance and ingenuity that define greatness." Back on Earth, reports trickled in. Colonists across the Lasara system were suddenly able to stabilize, their settlements thriving thanks to the reactivated Aurelian beacons. Command hailed Elias as a hero, though he did not seek glory. He merely filed his report, cataloged his damaged gear, and prepared for the next mission. The scratches, burns, and dents on his armor were trophies, reminders of each life-risk challenge overcome, and each time humanity's ingenuity had triumphed over raw odds. In the months that followed, the story of the human who had walked through alien laughter to activate the beacon became legend. Scientists studied the methods he had employed, engineers salvaged his improvised tools for analysis, and military tacticians dissected his strategy. Yet none could replicate the essence that had made him succeed, the mind and heart behind the gear. On Lasara, the Lacerans began a quiet transformation. They studied human ingenuity, attempting to emulate the patience, creativity, and daring that Elias had exemplified. They rebuilt their perception of humans, not as fragile creatures, but as species capable of incredible resilience, capable of turning the impossible into the achieved. Years later, Elias returned to Score, not for conquest, but to check on the stability of the beacons. The desert was quieter now, the sandstorms tamer, the fissures stabilized. As he walked, he noticed small signs, markings left by the Lacerans, subtle symbols of respect, etched into the rocks near the ruins. He paused, touched one, and smiled. Even in a species so alien, respect could be communicated, and the cost of his journey had left a lasting impression. Elias knew there would always be more challenges, more worlds that mocked him before understanding him. But he also knew this. Each scar on his armor, each dent on his tools, each piece of worn equipment carried a story of survival, of creativity, and of victory against odds that would have broken lesser beings. The galaxy had laughed at his worn gear, yet in every corner it touched afterward, it would remember his name. Not just for surviving, but for thriving when no one thought he could. And as he looked up at the twin suns setting behind the spires of Score, Elias understood something profound. Humanity's true power was not in perfection, not in tools or tech, but in the unwavering will to endure, adapt, and triumph. The galaxy could doubt, mock, or underestimate, but when humans walked into the impossible, they left proof behind, proof written not in polished armor, but in courage, ingenuity, and the cost they were willing to pay. With a final glance at the horizon, Captain Elias Train walked on, each step a testament to human resilience. Behind him, the beacons pulsed gently, a signal to all who would come later. That one human, with nothing but worn gear and unwavering resolve, had changed the fate of stars. The galaxy had laughed, but it had learned, too late, that the cost of underestimating humanity was far greater than any could endure.